Hello everybody and welcome to your latest Rangers review video special as we delve deeper into specific players, and today it is all about Mohamed Diomande. Joshua joins me armed with slides and gifts today, Joshua.
Yeah, as ever, looking forward to speaking about Mohamed Diomande a bit. Derek, obviously a player that was signed by Rangers in January, kind of out the blue. So we're going to talk a bit about what type of player he is, and specifically focusing on the game against Benfica last week, where I thought he was really good, tying in some comments from Clement and linking as well. We did a piece with the scout who found him when he was 11 years old in the Ivory Coast. A coach who worked with him, Fraser Robertson, right throughout his time at Right to Dream Academy, another person from the Right to Dream network as well. So that piece is in the description, gives a bit more insight about his journey to this point, the player he is, the character he is, and hopefully this video answers a little bit more about why he is a midfield profile is going to help Clement progress his style of play, and as I say, what we've seen from him so far.
Yeah, he's had a good start to his Rangers career, there's no doubt about it. Scored a couple of super goals as well, which is interesting because I remember when he initially signed, I spoke to a Northland podcast and he said that goals and assists is something that he has to improve upon. He's already arrived and netted twice, two fantastic goals as well. And his versatility is, I think, one of the big reasons why he was brought to the club in the first place. He can play in a variety of roles, can't he, Joshua? And he looks comfortable.
Yeah.
And I mean, he came in, he hasn't played much football because the Danish league ended a good few months ago. So he had to get up to speed. But he hasn't looked out of place so far. And he's been really good. So he has been asked to play in different roles. As you touched on, the Benfica game, it was a more defensive role that he was playing, and but he's shown that he has an eye for goal as well. So what we're going to delve into today?
Yeah, so I think firstly that word you use, versatility, is kind of the key point of this today's video, Derek, in that Clement said, I think it was after the St Johnstone game away from home, I've told you before, he said when he was asked, you can play a 6 or an 8 or a 10. And rather than us thinking about, okay, how does that help Rangers and help him from game to game, I think the overall point is Diomande is the type of player that can do all these different things within a game, can fulfill all these different functions within a midfield. And that is what is going to help Rangers. The fact that instead of thinking, oh, this game he can be a number 6, this game he can be a number 10, as we'll go on to look at in these GIFs and with his data as well, during games, he's going to be really valuable to Rangers because domestically, someone who obviously, as we see, as a goal threat, can run beyond, is as comfortable taking the ball off the defenders as he is running beyond the striker to provide an assist. And I think that is the key point about how he will progress Rangers midfield, because when he was linked in January, I think the narrative was, why are Rangers spending the money here when they could be spending the money on the striker? Obviously, the deal is on a loan with an obligation to buy, so it's structured slightly differently than spending all the money on a striker in January. But he offers Rangers something that I think in hindsight they didn't have in that midfield, which is firstly a left-sided balance, someone who's left-footed, comfortable in the left side of the midfield, and secondly just a press-resistant profile who can, as I say, fulfil a number of different functions. And Nico Raskin isn't in a great moment in his Rangers career, but he's someone who is press-resistant, but he's not quite the same as Diomande. I don't think he could play as a number 10. He could maybe play as a 6 or an 8, but he's not going to move into the final third of the pitch and make an impact quite as comfortably as Mohamed Diomande is. So I'll show this radar, Derek, which is radar from Northland this season. If it's complicated, don't worry, I'll break it down. You can pause the video if you want. But if you just look around at that, and it's a small sample size, about 11.4 90 minutes played in the Superliga, Danish Superliga, before he joined Rangers this season. You just look at his defensive action, on-ball value, and then the open play XG assisted, how valuable his passes are, his general on-ball value. And if you don't know what on-ball value is, it's basically, I'll maybe put a link in the description to explain it a little bit more. But in essence, it's StatsBomb's newest stat, which kind of looks at the overall value of a player on the ball, how that impacts the team positively and negatively in relation to goals conceded or scored, which is why you see that right around the radar. What stands out from that, Derek, is he's a player who does a lot. He's not just someone who's got high open play XG assisted and maybe successful carries. He can fulfill a lot of different functions within a team. And again, the reason that's so valuable is, he can only have rotations on the left-hand side, for example, with someone like Ridvan, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. He can only go in, a winger can only move wide if normally a fullback is more comfortable moving on the inside, which is why if you cast your mind back, Ryan Kent and Borna Barisic were slightly one dynamic because they were always making the same movement. I've got a couple of quotes here from coaches that is referenced in this piece that's in the description, Derek. This is his first coach, Fraser Robertson, who's now the first team coach at Standard Liège. He said, "For me, it's a really good way to describe it, that he's a midfielder who ticks all the modern boxes. Even as a young player, Dio could play anywhere in the midfield and do both types of role. If you wanted him to be a defensive midfielder and break the game up, he'd do that, no problem. Equally, he's very creative with a high technical level, excellent ball manipulation and feel for the ball. He's a natural ball-playing footballer." Joe Mulberry, who's a scout who found him when he was 11, says he can play multiple positions across a variety of tactical approaches. "I feel he's best as an advanced number 8 or 10 in the top line of midfield, bringing creativity into play around the box as well as late runs into the box." And Gareth Henbury, who's he's the head of academies at FC Northland, technical director at Right to Dream, which is the academy that Diomande came through at, says Diomande's key strength is that technically he's so good. If he keeps focused, he can go through a whole game without giving the ball away. A real link player from back to front, always available for his team, picking up good positions, always aware of what is around him and likes to play forward. The big part of his game is accessing the final third. So what type of player is he, Derek? This is just his successful passes received in league games so far. About 4 matches, 490 minutes he's played. And again, you just notice a variation, a lot of passes at the edge of the box, which is obviously where he scored against Hearts and St Johnstone, but equally he's taking the ball off the centre-backs. He can move into the outside lanes. So as we'll go on to look at in these GIFs below, specifically from the Benfica game, I think the key point is, yes, he's a versatile player who can fulfil different tactical functions, but I think Rangers will really feel the benefit because, especially as they try to break down teams, but more so because of how I guess fluid the zones in our football now. How fluid the zones in football are now. If you think of John Stone, someone who's a centre back, but you see his runs in recent games, he's the one that's going beyond into the box quite often. Rangers need those type of players who are as comfortable taking the ball deep as they are running beyond in the midfield during a game. So that's what we're going to look at just now. Hopefully that gives a bit of an overview into what type of player Diomande is exactly.
Yeah, I've been impressed by him so far. I mean, he's a slight build, but he uses his body ever so well. So comfortable on the ball as well, both right and left-footed, although he's predominantly a left-footed player. But I've been really impressed so far. I think I was one that in the January transfer window, I was thinking, why are Rangers looking to bring in a midfielder? But it's clear as day. He is a quality acquisition, and it'll be money well spent. I have no doubt about that. So this you got Benfica stills, is that right, Joshua?
Yeah, we'll go into the GIFs. I'll play these as ever. I'll play them through a couple of times just to let people watch them in. I'll pause them at different moments, and we can discuss what I think we're seeing. So this is the first goal that he assisted away in Benfica. As I say, I'll play it through a couple of times. The ball, after Rangers had pressed high, went into the midfield. Diomande picked it up. Crossed it for Tom Lawrence, who scored.
What a goal that was.
Yeah, fantastic goal. Play it through one more time, and then we'll kind of go through it frame by frame. It should be said he was up against João Neves, who's one of the most promising. He'll go for 100 million in a season or two, and I thought Diomande didn't look out of place whatsoever against the Benfica midfield. I think the first thing to point is, here's an example of what he can do. Okay, he can press up man for man. He's got the legs to do that. Got the legs to go all over the pitch. But as the ball comes back into midfield, does really well to drop in and play it wide. But this is the most important thing, I think, Derek. Quite often Rangers have had midfielders who play this pass wide to Fabio Silva and then sit behind and just stay there, and they go for a return pass. And what that does, if you look here, Alexander Ba, if Diomande stays where he is, if he drops behind the ball, it makes it easier for Alexander Ba. He only has to defend one way. Because he makes that running behind, it completely changes the picture. And this is when we talk about flexibility, this is when the game enters the next phase. Now, okay, if you want to split it into number 8, number 10, here's your number 8. But then when he gets into the final third, he's just as comfortable being the number 10 and running beyond. It's a clever run because Fabio Silva's not going to drive on the left on his left foot. That's not his strength. Makes that run inside. When he gets into the box again, how often have we seen Rangers in recent seasons get into these type of positions and just hit it across the box? But he has the presence of mind to pick out Lawrence as Dujon Sterling told you in the mix zone, Derek, it's something they'd worked on, the runners into the box, which obviously led to both goals, and Lawrence can score the goal. But I think this is the key point here. As João Neves goes to the ball, he's running off the back Diomande of the midfield, because it's Neves that presses Silva initially. Silva sidesteps him well. If you have a Jack or a Lundstrom there, they're not the type of players that I think then become your number 10 in the final third, can make that run beyond and have the vision to pick out the pass. His goal against St Johnstone is different. Again, I'll play us through a couple of times, but again, I think the key point here is that jump, that versatility in game, where he's as comfortable in one phase as he is in the other, and how that actually translates into the small margins of a game. So what do I mean by that? Look at him here. Lundstrom's the one who's wide, and you're seeing this a lot more frequently at the moment, Derek, where Lundstrom isn't in the kind of central pivot position because Diomande can receive under pressure. He's press resistant, whereas that is not Lundstrom's game, and I think that's improving Rangers' build up a bit. But if you watch Phillips here when the ball goes wide, he's watching the ball, he's caught ball watching a bit, but he's presuming that Diomande, as that deep line midfielder, will stay there. He's played at the base of midfield to this point in the game. He's not expecting that run beyond. And something I think we don't often think enough about in football is timing and the timing of movement. And this again translates to the fact that Diomande is a player who's comfortable in these attacking areas. So when the ball, he has the presence of mind again to think a step ahead. When Tavernier plays that ball, he's off. And if you look at this distance, it's only when Phillips turns round and recognises where the ball is that he sees he's lost his man in Diomande. And then Diomande rolls the ball brilliantly in his right foot on that pitch, which was bobbling a fair amount to finish. And obviously the quality of finish in that Hearts game and the St Johnstone game stands out. But again, tiny details this. But these are the small margins that earn you a shot at the edge of the box and break the deadlock in a game like this, which is just as important. But the point being, his marker's watching the ball. He's not expecting that run from the base of midfield to go beyond. But Diomande, again, if you want to think of it in quite rigid terms, switches from your number 8 there to your number 10 in behind to create that goal. So that is a couple of examples of what we see in terms of how his attacking inputs help with that goal and assist. And we can then just to finish talk about how that translates to Diomande being someone who is a bit more press resistant and is going to improve Rangers' build up through the midfield, and also what he gives you off the ball, because I think that's a big part of his game as well, Derek.
Yeah, loved that goal. Great control and then skill just to roll it in front of him before lashing it into the back of the net. And that's what Rangers needed at that point. Interestingly, when we spoke to him, when he was put up for the press, of course, recently, he was asked, is defensive midfield your strongest position? He says, I'm a box-to-box midfielder. I can also play as a defensive midfielder. I can give a lot to my team when we're attacking. And he was asked, do you think you can bring goals to the team? Yes, I scored a few goals in Denmark, and I wanted to make a difference and score goals. I want to get in the right places at the right time to make a difference. It's part of my game. So he's certainly doing just that. He's shown that he's a pretty strong competitor wherever you put him in that Rangers midfield. I'm right in thinking you brought on as a sub, didn't you? I can't remember what game it was, but ever since then he's been an ever-present, Joshua. Yeah,
he started at Ayr in the Scottish Cup, and then I can't remember what game it was after that, but he's clearly someone who, again, is Rangers will hope there's a long-term value there, and I think very clearly there will be with him just aged 22, but also can come in and make an immediate impact to this season, which, as we've been discussing with the injury situation all week, is very necessary. This is his action map actually from the Benfica game, and again, nothing too groundbreaking here, but you just look at the diversity of his touches towards the top, and Rangers are shooting from left to right on your screen. If you look at his touches in the opposition box where he gets that assist, but he's also receiving the ball deep and making defensive interactions. So very much a box-to-box midfielder, but a box-to-box midfielder in the modern game, where it's not just about running up and down, but it's about how can you, in your defensive thirds, have the technical ability to receive the ball under pressure, as we're going to look at, and make important defensive interactions. And then in the attacking element of the game, as we've just looked at, how can you break lines, run beyond, make actions that break down a defence? So if we look at a couple of moments away in Lisbon where he helped Rangers play through the midfield really successfully. Again, this might look like a simple pass, Ridvan wrapping the ball into midfield, but this is a type of pass we've not seen much under Clement, because he's not had a profile at the base of midfield to receive these balls in a really tight area. Again, no coincidence that it's Lundstram that's dropping outside of the block and Diomande who's receiving in that tight area. And what this does, if you're playing through pressure, you can see here, simply he attracts two men. The pass is actually deflected and it goes out of play. But he attracts two men, creates the free man, and Rangers can play through a team. Simple, but it's not something we've seen under Clement's tenure that much so far, purely because Derek, I think he wants to mitigate the risk of where Rangers lose the ball while simultaneously trying to attack quite directly. And if we look at, here's a better example from, I think this is in the first half. This is again, I think it's John Suter this time. Diomande receives a pass from, attracts two players again. But I just want you to look at where, if you look at where João Neves is now compared to where he is in this frame here, he's rushing up to receive the ball, and look at where Fabio Silva can then get it. This is I think really important because it just creates that free man. Again, allows Rangers to play through. If I play it through again, play through the midfield quickly, still attack quickly, but with a little bit more control, pulling that number 6 out of his position, as you can see here for Fabio Silva, to eventually get on the ball. Again, it looks really simple, but there's so much risk because if Diomande loses the ball in this situation, Rangers concede a really dangerous counter-attack. And as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago when we were doing the podcast on the defensive structure, Derek, that's not something they've done all that much that recently. So again, really simple, but he's press resistant. It means you can play through the midfield, create 2v1s, which creates a free man higher up the pitch. And he has a technical capacity to do that. And very finally, I thought the other thing that stood out in Lisbon was just really his defensive nous. If you look at this situation, Rangers lose the ball in a not too dangerous an area. I'll play it through a couple of times again. That's very quick, that GIF. Sorry, I don't know why. I've obviously not set it to the right speed. But the point, I'll just take it to a still. James Tavernier is slightly out of position because the ball's bounced over him. Diomande's deep enough to match up David Neres, and then again, simple, but he can be your disruptive midfielder who drops into either side and covers your fullback and wins this duel 1v1. He's got the legs, he's got the defensive capacity to do that. And here's one more example. This is from slightly later in the game. Again, Benfica work in possession around the edge of the box. I'll just play it through. John Lundstram is taken out of position by a run. Diomande is over there to snuff out the counter-attack. Simple stuff again, but it's the small margins that make a difference. You see Lundstram here, his run is taken away. Diomande, and it's just really looking at what is it's another element of his game which comes naturally to him. He's not a player who is an attacking player playing deep, and he switches off when he's in that defensive zone. I thought against Benfica, he didn't look out of place against the midfield at all, whether it be how he was receiving through pressure, whether it would be how he was running beyond, whether it would be his defensive interactions like this to just shield his defence and screen the defence. And I guess the best compliment you could give him is if you only looked at his small number of attacking interactions in this game because of the type of game it was for Rangers, you'd think, okay, there's a creative technical player who can disrupt defences. If you only looked at his passes in midfield, you'd think, okay, there's someone who is press resistant and can play through. But then equally, if you're to watch his defensive interactions, he does look like a defensive midfielder. So I guess to summarise, that's what stood out to me about his versatility. Yes, it's going to give Rangers different options from game to game, but most importantly, when you're trying to break down teams with the football so fluid these days between attack and defence and transition and man-to-man press and hyper press, you need players who can do all these different things within a game. And early days, but Mohamed Diomande looks like a really exciting modern midfield profile that Rangers lacked, and now they have and should make a big impact between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, he's been pretty good so far. Long may it continue. Fascinating as ever, Joshua. Thank you for that. If you want to look at some of the other videos we've done, folks, we did one on Ridvan last week. There's one you can watch on Rangers' defensive structure and also on Todd Cantwell as well. It's something we're hoping to do regularly every week going forward. So there's a little piece on Mohamed Diomande. Hopefully you enjoyed that. There is an article, Joshua, link, which you can read in more detail about the Ivorian as well. So do go and check it out. Right, that'll do us there. Thank you for watching, and we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.